Ezra Levant's my name. This is a Rebel News live stream. It's sort of an emergency live stream, as in it's based on events. I'm sitting next to our mission specialist, David Menzies. There's a reason for that. Yesterday, David Menzies was at a vigil for Persian Canadians because it's the anniversary of an Iranian government terrorist group shooting down a passenger jet, killing dozens of Canadians. And when you were there, you spied with your little eyes the Deputy Prime Minister, who had the audacity to show up at this vigil, even though that she refuses to declare this Republican Guard terrorist group a terrorist group. Set the scene, and then we'll play the video that has received 10 million views overnight. David, first of all, thanks for taking the time here. Give us the background, and then we'll go straight to the video.
Yes, indeed, Ezra. Back in January of 2020, the IRGC shot down a Ukrainian civilian aircraft, 179 people killed, innocent civilians. Oh, and I'll add one more, an unborn baby, which of course the left will never list as a mortality. But in that death toll, 55 Canadians, most of them of Persian descent. And I can tell you, I went to the first vigil back in 2020. And it was very interesting because there were politicians of every political stripe and every level, municipal, provincial, and federal, showing up, with the notable exception of one, even though the venue is actually in the riding of Richmond Hill. And the one person that didn't show up was Majid Johari. And I spoke to people there, and they said it's probably for his own well-being, because Majid Johari, to this day, is a supporter of the Iranian regime. He has had secret meetings with Iranian government officials in Canada. And I'll tell you, Ezra, I actually live within walking distance of the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts. I've lived in Richmond Hill for 25 years now. There's a huge Persian minority there. I believe it's as much as 14% now. All the Persians I've met in this last quarter century there have been the greatest people. I have Persian friends. I go to Persian restaurants. I shop at Persian stores. All of them have fled the regime for what happened back in 1979 with the revolution, and talk about buyer's remorse. All of them I admire, except, inexplicably, the federal member of parliament, Majid Johari. And if you recall, in 2019, that was the closest riding in Canada. Wow. Kostas Minigakis, the Conservative, he actually went to bed as the winner. Yeah. But when they counted the mail-in ballots, guess what?
So that's some background. You were there for the vigil. Yep. And who do you spy but the Deputy Prime Minister, Freeland? Let's go to the video now. I want to show folks what happened when David spotted Freeland, and he did, or tried to do, some journalism. Take a look at this.
Ms. Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-Nazis? What? Excuse me. What are you doing?
You're under arrest for assault.
What, sir?
Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault.
Who are you?
You're under arrest for assault.
Police, you're under arrest for assault. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me.
You pushed into me.
I was just scrubbing. I got my credentials here, and you just bumped into me. So excuse
Police,
me.
You're under arrest.
What is your name and your badge? What is your name and your badge?
You've been told you're under arrest.
Why am I under arrest? He blocked my way. What? I was just scrumming Freeland.
I'm a police officer. You're under arrest.
What is your name and your badge?
Of assaulting a police officer.
How is that possible?
Okay, because
you assaulted me 3 years ago when blackface was around.
that was very aggressive. What was happening?
You mean I was asking questions aggressively?
No, your actions were. You were almost pushing everybody over. That's how it appears.
Lincoln, you got this on video, right? He's saying I'm pushing people over?
Yeah.
That's an absolute falsehood.
There were feet were shuffling.
So now it appeared that way. That's what you're saying, officer? It appeared I was pushing people. I didn't touch a single person.
That was a little bit aggressive for what was happening. Get that. You're under arrest. Please take the microphone out of my face.
Well, I'd like an ongoing record of this.
Can I have the microphone? Can I have the microphone? Can I have the microphone?
No,
Can you give?
I'm not resisting. Take your hand out. Why am I under arrest? I'm just doing my job.
Stop resisting. You don't need to resist. I don't know.
You don't have to say anything. You know the drill.
I have nothing to hide, officer. Welcome to Black Faces Canada. This is what they do to journalists. I was merely scrumming Minister Freeland, and a RCMP officer blocked me, and evidently this is now a trumped-up charge of assault, folks. I didn't come here to cause any trouble. I came here to do my job, and now I'm handcuffed. This is your Canada now, folks. You know, this is the Gestapo taking blackface's orders. Outrageous. And meanwhile, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is not a terrorist organization. Is not a terrorist organization. And these liberals have the audacity to show up at a vigil for a plane in which almost 200 people were killed, 57 Canadians, one unborn child, by the way. And look at this. They don't want, it is against the law in Black Faces Canada to ask insensitive questions, impolite questions. So a Canadian government that props up an Islamo-fascist regime, that's okay. But if you ask questions about that, that's not okay. This is an absolute outrage. I didn't come here to cause trouble, folks. I just came here to ask questions.
You're going to have to back up a little bit,
Apparently,
okay? They're conducting an
that's my
arrest.
cameraman, so he's not doing anything.
No, I just want to provide some space so that everybody's safe here, okay?
Incredible video. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
On keeping your cool, but I want to say something, and I can't help but chuckle. You were arrested. They were handcuffing you. There was half a dozen cops on you. And you kept working. You kept asking them questions. You kept, you did not stop. And I shouldn't be laughing because the whole thing is so atrocious. It's a bonfire of civil liberties. But David, the Menzoid Menzies, you would not be stopped. And I got to tell you, not 1 in 1,000 journalists would have had your self-control and your dedication to mission. And we're glad that you're free.
Yeah.
They did arrest you. They did, as you heard that bully, that thug. I hear his nickname is the Bouncer, which I heard that this morning. If I was a cop, I wouldn't be proud of that because the stereotype of a bouncer is just a tough thug who pushes people around and gets kicks out of it. That's not what you want in policing. Self-control, believe it or not, is actually the first ingredient for policing. You kept your cool. Absolute stitch up, as the British would say. Entrapment, gaslighting. They're goddamn liars. The reason that has 10 million views is because it's not just because you were arrested for doing journalism. That's shocking. But we all saw in real time how he tried to trip you. He bumped into you,
Yes.
and then said, "You're under arrest for assault." And then the other cop with the beard made up this whole story about how you were pushing people around and you were aggressive. It's their lies, their facility with lying, their ease of lying, their love for lying, their natural state, their default state is to lie. They really have taken after their boss, Justin Trudeau. Now, I should say the York Regional Police, who took you into custody, they obviously, I mean, you can tell me what they said in the cop car because I wasn't there. They obviously realized this was BS and let you go. Why don't you, so first of all, I just want to say all those things, but why don't you break some news today? What happened when you were in the cop car? Because we didn't have that on film.
Well, Ezra, it was surreal, actually, because, they read the rights. And
they did give you a caution,
that's
legal
right.
caution in the car.
And they said, you can, do you understand what we're saying? And, you can make a phone call to your lawyer. Uh-huh. And they originally said, we're going to bring you down to the police station to, I guess, process me, which is on Major Mackenzie. I know Richmond Hill very well after living there all these years. And then another police officer came up to them. I couldn't hear where, there was a conversation. They went, okay.
And you were in the back of the car at this point.
I'm
and
in
were
the
you
back.
handcuffed?
Yeah, to their credit, they allowed me to have my hands handcuffed here as opposed to behind my back because even though it's an SUV, it's an incredibly cramped space. I have double hip replacement,
Right,
Ezra.
right.
If I tried to wiggle my way into there, I could get really injured.
Oh, yeah.
So they allowed me, and I said, officers, I'm not going to run away. I'm not going to hurt you. And so they allowed
It's
me.
outrageous that they handcuffed you. I want to say it's outrageous that they arrested you. It's outrageous that they assaulted you, that they falsely imprisoned you, falsely, maliciously prosecuted. All these things are outrageous. But to handcuff you, there is no requirement to handcuff someone when arresting them. In fact, legally, they just have to put their hand on you and say you're under arrest.
Right.
In fact, they don't even have to do that.
Yes.
And for them to handcuff you is such a flourish, such an abuse, such a theatrical, abusive move. And it was the RCMP. Was it the RCMP who cuffed you, or the York Regional Police?
I think it was the York Regional Police. Yeah.
That's outrageous. Yeah. But so there was a conversation. You were in the back. You were cuffed. They were going to take you down to headquarters, and then there was a conversation you didn't hear, and then what?
Then the police cruiser starts to drive north, and I know Major Mackenzie is south. And we went to a school that had been dismissed, and we went to the back of the school.
Back to school? What's going on?
I'm thinking, Ezra, if people know the legend of the so-called Cherry Beach Express, that the Toronto police used to bring some people to Cherry Beach area for a little physical interrogation. I'm thinking, that's what I'm thinking, because why
would they take you to the back of a school?
Yeah, and then they said, change of plans. We're going to release you here
at the school.
At the school, it was a short walk back. It wasn't that far. And they said the reason is that the RCMP officer has decided to decline to press charges. So we're going to let you go, which says a lot, I think, Ezra, because there were multiple eyewitnesses there, including members of law enforcement and Trudeau's security detail. Even if he declined to press charges, if they thought it was egregious enough what I did, and I did nothing, they could still say, no, I eyewitnessed that, that attack on Freeland, or if you consider, I don't know, the asking of impolite or insensitive questions an attack. And then they said, they took my ID and took out down the notes, and I was free to go. And I walked back to the Richmond Hill Center for the Performing Arts. I was told I've been trespassed there, which is inexplicable, Ezra, because if there's no criminal charge now, why am I being trespassed? But Lincoln was trespassed too.
And says who? Says a cop?
It says a cop. I said, listen, officer, I'll take you at your word, but give me a name of who's trespassed. And they said, well, we don't have a name.
I think they just might be liars, though, David. That's the thing. The first 45 years of my life, you would never find a more pro-police guy than me. I mean, I would find any rationalization to justify what a cop did. I would say, sure, we saw him beat the tar out of a guy, but we probably didn't see what happened beforehand. I side with the cop. Like, I was so blindly pro-cop, and it was a source of pride for me, and I truly loved cops. Now, I know there are some good cops out there, but after what I saw with policing, first of all, during the lockdowns of the pandemic, and now how they bring coffee to Hamas protesters but arrest you, and they beat you up. This isn't the first time that you were roughed up by the PMO, RCMP security. I think they're wicked liars. We saw how easily they lied. Like, it was so natural to watch them lying to you. Oh, you were aggressive. You were pushing people over. You assaulted me. Like, they said these lies.
Yes.
They're great actors. I can imagine how many times in court they've just perjured themselves to get a conviction. These guys, lying is in their nature.
Yeah, 2024 hasn't got off on the right foot in terms of policing. You mentioned the Toronto police on Saturday at the Avenue Road Bridge, which is in a heavily Jewish area. That's why they go to that bridge, the pro-Hamas demonstrators. Suddenly the Toronto police transitioned from cop to Uber Eats driver, giving them Timbits and coffees. And it's funny, one of the common comments I see in the streams, Ezra, is, Menzies, this is on you. You should have been chanting genocide to an identifiable group.
They wouldn't have touched you then. Now, let's talk about Chrystia Freeland, that smirking, twitchy granddaughter of a Nazi, celebrator of Nazis. I think her grandfather, who was a legit Nazi, expropriated a Jewish newspaper from a Jew in the Holocaust and turned it into a Nazi propaganda rag. Yes. And then Chrystia Freeland, I don't blame her for what her grandfather did before she was even born, but she tried to hide it and cover it up, and then she celebrated that Nazi Yaroslav Hanka in Parliament.
Yes.
And so to watch her smirk as you were arrested on her behalf, is so gross, and unless it's happened in the last 15 minutes we've been on air, she has not yet apologized. Mm-hmm. She has not disavowed. She has not said anything. And I think Chrystia Freeland is so gross. I mean, she's gross in a number of ways. But you might not remember this, but 4 years ago, the governments of Canada and the United Kingdom had something called a Media Freedom Conference.
Oh, I remember that.
And Sheila Gunn-Reid and I went over there. Yeah. And if you can believe it, Chrystia Freeland was the co-chair of this conference. So Sheila and I were over there in London at this press freedom conference. Yes. Chrystia Freeland gives a speech, and then she has a press conference. So Sheila wants to go.
Yes.
And Chrystia Freeland says, no, not you.
Yeah.
At a Media Freedom Conference. Now, in the only time I can remember this happening, the other reporters there said, if you don't let her in, we're not going.
That was incredible. And let's make no bones. Those were foreign journalists coming to bat for you, not the Canadian.
They were Canadians stationed overseas, so they weren't part of the Ottawa mindset.
Gotcha. Okay.
But how gross a person are you? You literally give a speech at a Media Freedom Conference, but like these cops, you're a total inveterate liar. You're a total genetic liar. And so the second you're off the stage talking about media freedom, you're banning and censoring journalists. She is a depraved, morally depraved, amoral, zombie, fascist, just like her Nazi grandfather.
I couldn't have said it any better. And there's an added level of perversity here when it comes to Fraulein Freeland, Ezra, and it's this. Once upon a time, before she got into politics, she was a journalist.
If you call what she did journalism, it was basically, she was the official biographer to George Soros. Oh. I don't know if you know that. So that's not really journalism, it's propaganda. Yeah. I want to show you 2 tweets, if I may, because this is like, let me just check right now.
Sure.
How many views the video has got. I mean, a few moments ago, it was 10 million.
Wow.
And which is just incredible overnight. Even in the time we've been talking, 100,000 more views. So 10.1 million views, just 100,000 just since you and I were talking.
Yeah.
I sat down here and I showed you it was 10 million. Now it's 10.1 million. It's really gaining 500,000 an hour or more. And that's because it shows the truth of your arrest. It shows these wicked, lying RCMP deceivers. And so far, not a single mainstream media outlet has published on this. True North has, Western Standard has, obviously we have. I feel like I'm leaving what Epoch Times has. Yeah. But other than that, no. Now, I should mention I've been reached out to by the Globe and Mail and the CBC. So
that's
I expect it's the first time that's happened in years. So I'm optimistic. But in a way, this is proof of citizen journalism and social media. You're a citizen journalist asking a question about the Liberals refusing to ban this terrorist group, the Islamic Republican Guard Corps. That's IRGC. Correct. But in a way, I don't even care if the CBC or the Globe and Mail covers. I mean, I'm glad they are. Let me say that. But when 10.1 million people, that is more than the combined audience of all the TV stations, all the radio stations, and all the newspapers in this country. There's not 10.1 million people watching the CBC. It's more like 250,000. Yeah. And there's not 10.1 million people reading newspapers. It's maybe a couple million in the whole country combined. So, I'm glad that the mainstream media is catching up.
I think the numbers are important because I think this is the reason why the likes of the Globe and Mail and the CBC, I would argue, are reluctantly covering this. You can't ignore that 800-pound gorilla in the room. I mean, it's going around the world. It's being talked about all around the world. They're almost, shamed into covering this. And, I got to tell you, Ezra, in a way, this was very much deja vu. As you well know, back in December 2021, Lincoln J and I, that's the ace videographer we have on staff, we went down to a downtown Toronto restaurant. And the context was this. It was early December, and Trudeau had issued a statement saying, because COVID is so dire, please don't get together with friends and family for Christmas. Oh, okay, but again, one rule for thee, one rule for me. He's holding a $1,700 plate fundraiser at the Brickworks restaurant. And Lincoln and I, unlike the mainstream media who were welcomed in via red carpet, we stood outside in the cold because blackface is always at least an hour late. and we're on a public sidewalk. And I see the video rolling right now. I'm chatting with his security detail. Here comes the entourage, typically 8 big 8-cylinder fossil fuel burning vehicles. No EVs or plug-in hybrids here, Ezra. And look, without any kind of identification, I am manhandled. They bring me down the sidewalk. This is all a public sidewalk. And they, what do they always do this? They did it yesterday. They smashed my head into a fence or onto an SUV hood. I don't get it. In any event, the reason why we were there, I knew we'd only get a chance to ask Trudeau one question. And it was, Mr. Prime Minister, why the double standard? Why are you telling Canadians not to get together with friends and family at Christmas, but you're packing them in like sardines? Oh, there was no social distancing that night.
Yeah, now the guy with the cap on,
yes,
I think he's bald. Is that the same guy who assaulted you yesterday?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know. But
I noticed that you asked that dollar store Kojak for his name and his badge number repeatedly, and he refused.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, shows cowardice. Second of all, shows that he's not a rule follower. Third of all, it shows that he's a rogue cop, and I would call him a dirty cop.
I agree. And I think going back to that event, I mean, it's something I can't prove unless Trudeau fessed up himself. I really believe, Ezra, that Trudeau saw me on that sidewalk. He knows who we are. I have the Rebel News mic flash, for goodness sake. I have my trademark hat on. And I really believe he said to a security detail, boys, give them the works. Because why on earth would Royal Canadian Mounted Police officers, on their own volition, jump out of the SUVs and rough me up like that?
Well, I think that the RCMP VIP security detail, the bodyguards, they have hung out with Trudeau so much and they have drunk the Kool-Aid. And instead of being a professional police force, they are his personal errand boys. And you're very identifiable in a number of reasons, including your hat. And they just, David Menzies, let's go beat him up. They don't have the courage to take on 100 Hamas protesters.
No.
They're not brave enough for that. But they'll take on a fellow like you, who, as you mentioned, has 2 artificial hips, and you're a journalist and you don't fight back. So they're very, very courageous beating you up. I should tell our viewers that we're suing those cops for what they did at the Brickworks restaurant 2 Christmases ago. And I had a call late last night with one of our best lawyers named Sarah Miller.
She's great.
And I know her work because she has defended a number of cases for the Democracy Fund, including a very difficult case involving Pastor Arthur Pawlowski. And Pawlowski was convicted of keeping his church open during the lockdowns. He lost at trial. That's a tough, when you lose a trial and you appeal, the odds are against you. But Sarah Miller got that overturned 3-0 in a precedent-setting case. It was a huge victory. I've watched her work, I've read her work, and I talked to her at length yesterday, and I want to tell our viewers that just because the cops say they're done with you doesn't mean we're done with the cops, especially that dirty Kojak.
Yeah.
And so we'll wait until the legal documents are finalized. Sarah, we only gave her the file last night. Obviously, it only happened yesterday afternoon.
Yep.
But in my mind, I see a false arrest charge, obviously.
Yes.
Malicious prosecution, even though they were only proceeding against you for probably an hour, it was still false. False imprisonment, when you were arrested, handcuffed, and put in the back of a car and then dumped off at a school. And of course, you yourself were the one who was assaulted. And that last one really bugs me because, like I say, they didn't need to handcuff you. They didn't need to smash your face against a wall. Like, literally, what was that other than their abusiveness? I think they violated the rights to physical integrity. And remember that all this was done in the context of you doing legitimate public interest journalism in a public place, on a public person, the Deputy Prime Minister, on a very important cause. So I think your charter rights were violated as well, including your freedom of the press. You are a journalist. So those dirty cops may be done with you, but as God is my witness, we are not done with them. And I'm going to leave the details to the expert, Sarah Miller, but it is my plan to sue these dirty cops to infinity, to sue them until Jesus returns and brings with him, the second coming.
Am I going to live that long, Ezra?
Well, whatever it is, we will pursue these dirty bastards until the end, especially those two wicked liars. Yeah. The Kojak guy, who was the thug, the bully, the bouncer, as his nickname is, and the bearded manipulator, the gaslighter, who said, "Oh, you were pushing everyone around. You were aggressive. You wicked liar. You grotesque liar. You imposter." That is, he was acting as a criminal, not as a cop. And
Ezra, if I may, could you imagine if that was just me with, like, say, a tape recorder, no video? We're toast. It's we. When I hear viewers pitch stories to us, and something going sideways with law enforcement or security, the very first thing I say is, "Do you have video?" And when they say no, I said, "This is going to be a Herculean effort."
Yeah, he said, she said.
Yeah. And that is the society we live in right now. It's almost as though if it's not on video, it did not happen.
Well, as the kids say, Pixar, it didn't happen. Yeah. And that's why we should take a minute to give kudos to Lincoln J., your videographer, who has been with you in so many of these dramatic moments and keeps his cool and keeps that camera rolling. And I'm chuckling again that you kept doing journalism even after you were arrested.
I was surprised, Ezra, because usually when you are under arrest, they right away take away like everything, your cell phone, your wallet, your wristwatch, everything. And here I am still doing journalism, and I think, in the back of my head is, how long can I rag the puck? Yeah. I mean, like,
No, you did such a great job there. I want to say that there were a couple of cops next to you. And one cop, I'm going to describe him as a black man, who was with the York Regional Police. He seemed actually not thrilled with what was going on. He seemed to be reluctant. He helped get your stuff back together.
Yes.
He was like, do you have any words about the York Regional Police? Because it seems to me that the two thugs basically wanted to arrest you, but the York Regional Police said, "There's no arrestable matter here."
Yeah, that officer you speak of, I got that impression too, that he was downright embarrassed this was happening, and I found him to be a nice guy. I talked to him briefly when I was released. These guys have been dispatched, to bring me to the police cruiser. The York Regional Police officer I have contempt for is the guy in the back, the plainclothes. I guess
he's York. Is he York Regional? I thought he was an RCMP.
No, he is York Regional because he was, as you said, Ezra, he was lying through
He was
his
the
teeth.
liar. Okay, I didn't know he was York Regional.
He is York Regional. Yeah.
Okay, so you know what? Isn't that funny? I thought he was RCMP based on his attire.
And we should point out that, and like you, I like to back the blue. And I think most cops, I really do, are hardworking men and women, and they've got a tough job. I mean, when you're dealing with hooligans, gangbangers, you put your life on the line sometimes. But with York Regional Police, and I've had good experiences with them, but I had a really bad one, if you recall, back.
Ron McLean.
Can you imagine Ron? Like, forget about blackface, the Prime Minister. Ron McLean is royalty, and that was when I was manhandled, physically assaulted. That's also a case because they didn't want this Judas being asked questions.
Police are really becoming woke. They're being colonized by politics, and I think it's a disgrace to the profession. Now, I'm mindful the time is 12:41 Eastern time, and I know that you have a series of other interviews lined up, including in the United States.
Yes.
Now, you're starting to get some Canadian invitations, I think.
Yes, typically from the independent media. So, Mark Petroni at Saga 960 and him and Richard Serrett are kicking out of the ballpark.
Yeah, great guys.
Andrew Lawton at True North, of course. Yeah. And I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two. But and I'm happy to give my time and tell the story. And really, Ezra, doesn't the video tell the story? And I'll tell you why. We have millions of fans and supporters. That's undeniable. But we also have our haters. And I can't tell you the number of comments I've read, and this speaks to how egregious what happened to me was yesterday, that say, I'm not a fan of Rebel News. I'm not a fan of Ezra Levant. I'm not a fan of David Menzies. But, and it's the but holy cow, this is so beyond the pale that I have to call it out. It's garbage.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. I mean, it really is more than 99% supportive. There are a couple of people who it's so overwhelming because, again, there's no need for commentary. I mean, we're chatting about it because it's an interesting thing to us, but you just watch the raw video and you know exactly what happened. When you do these other shows, let me invite you to tell people that they can help you, and here's why. I have been suing the federal government for years. I think we have 7 lawsuits right now against Justin Trudeau in various capacities. And in every single case, the government lawyers up hugely. Typically, a Rebel versus Trudeau legal battle is 1 or 2 lawyers on our side versus 4, 5, 6, 7 lawyers on the other side. Last time I was in court, I think there were 7 lawyers on the other side. Money's no object to them.
Of course, because it's our money.
And they have the Justice Department, and they sometimes do both. They have a Justice Department lawyer, plus they use tax dollars to hire an outside expert firm. Like, it's astonishing. And if we sue the dirty cops here, both police forces and Chrystia Freeland, they are probably going to spend $1 million pushing back. There's no way that they would roll over on this. So how do we fight that David and Goliath battle? Well, we set up the website called standwithdavid.com. And Sarah Miller is not expensive, but she's not cheap. And this will be a long battle because they're going to fight us on everything.
Yep.
So if you can remember on these, just say, folks, if you want to help me, we do need to crowdfund my legal defense at standwithdavid.com because we really do need that help. And it's very exciting right now, but 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now, when we're really in the thick of the lawsuit, that's when the bills will start to rack up. So we really need folks' help now.
And I'm just so honored that our audience would contribute. Again, going back to our haters, Ezra, what I always find perversely ironic, they'll obviously say, oh, there goes Rebel News begging again. Wait a minute. I believe this is the most honest way of fundraising there is.
Absolutely.
We're not taking government money. If you like us, and you're in a position to give a few bucks, great. If you don't, you can still watch most of our content.
Yeah.
But the mainstream media takes it out of your bank account, assuming it's not frozen, that is,
that's right.
every 2 weeks.
Oh, absolutely. The average gift to Rebel News is $58. And I mention that because, first of all, you will never know who the donors are.
Yep.
I don't check who's given $58. So you're guided only by your conscience and serving the viewer. There's no one big oligarch benefactor who you have to please. And we take no government money. We're not part of a corporate conglomerate. We don't have an angel oligarch investor. It is the most honest way to operate. And when I was growing up, when I went to law school, I guess that's 30 years ago now, I would read cases about free speech battles in the courts. And there was always a lawyer, a top civil liberties lawyer, that was hired by a consortium of broadcasters. So there would be one excellent lawyer, and CTV and Global and CBC and the Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail would each chip in, let's say, a couple grand, enough to put together a little kitty, and they would send a Top Gun civil liberties lawyer to court to seek intervener status and say, Your Honor, I'm here on behalf of the whole industry. Yeah. I'm here on behalf of a bunch of competitors who disagree on everything except for we've got to defend freedom of the press. That's how it used to be. You can look back at all these cases, and there was a lawyer for what they called the consortium. And it was basically every time there was a free speech battle, everyone in the industry knew they had to pony up a couple of grand because that way, all for one and one for all. Everyone believed in free press, and that way it didn't fall to one company. That has not happened in over a decade. Yep. And so who will fill the void? Who went to court to bust down their ban on Rebel News at the leaders' debate? Well, we had to do that on our own. There was no interveners there. Yep. Who went to court to fight for my book, The Libranos? We were there by ourselves. Yep. Who's going to take these cops on? This morning I checked the Canadian Association of Journalists, Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, Canadian Civil Liberties Association, Amnesty International, PEN Canada, and the Committee for the Protection of Journalists. I checked 6 different organizations. None of them had anything to say about your case.
Unbelievable.
None of them. Do you think if Stephen Harper had arrested a CBC journalist, they'd be silent?
Oh, There'd be a royal commission. And Ezra, isn't it scary how quickly things have changed? Because as you well know, before Rebel News, before there was Sun News, you were the publisher of the Western Standard. You were one of the brave individuals in North America to actually publish that Mohammed caricature. And that resulted in a Human Rights Commission shakedown, of course. But back then, and I can't remember who went to bat for you, but there were those in the mainstream media, if not financially supporting you, saying, no, he has every right to do. If you publish that cartoon today, I don't think that support would be there at
absolutely
all.
not. In fact, they would be the ones calling for the prosecution. Yeah. We got to go in about 5 minutes because we got to get you ready for the series of interviews you're doing. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you.
And I was in the middle of some dental surgery yesterday. I get the phone call from you, and I'm sorry I was not more available yesterday, but thank God you're okay. And we will. They started this fight. We will finish it. I swear on the altar of God that we will take this the distance I am. I will spend my last dollar on this, but hopefully I won't have to do that. Hopefully our viewers.
I don't want you to do that.
Well, I will never let this go. And
thank you, Ezra.
And well, I just won't. I just won't. And it would be great if other people helped, but I have to tell you that there's nothing more important than this. We all saw exactly what happened. We all saw the lying, the gaslighting. We all saw the false arrest, the false imprisonment. We all saw the assault. We all saw that smirking fascist walk by. And if that doesn't prick people to action, well, then by God, I don't know what does. I want to show a couple of tweets, okay? Because there is a politician I want to give some credit to. Can you call up Pierre Poilievre's two tweets on the subject? So last night, his tweet is, and we did this late at night, 11 p.m., but fair enough. I mean, at least he did. He was the first politician to do it. He said he retweeted the video. This is the state of freedom of the press in Canada in 2024 after 8 years of Trudeau.
Nailed it.
And scroll down. I want to see the view count on this. 1.7 million views. So good for him. People are obviously attentive. And then just at 12:03, just after we started our broadcast, he had a follow-up tweet, which I think showed a little bit more courage. He was leaning into it. Well, the first one was, listen, give the guy credit.
Yep.
And then at 12:03 Eastern Time today, he said this. A journalist was arrested for questioning a Liberal minister, and the Parliamentary Press Gallery doesn't say a word.
Not surprised.
Trudeau has divided media into two groups, those he's bought off with bailouts and those he censors and has arrested. Mm-hmm. Sign here to support a free press. And that tweet has over 100,000 views, and it's not even an hour. Yeah.
Wow.
So this tells me that, like on so many other issues, the government is out of step with the zeitgeist of the people. And it's a flicker of hope. And I know that Aaron O'Toole or Andrew Scheer would have been much more reticent about, oh my God, it's rebel news. and hopefully the Conservative Party will get over that a bit. I saw another Conservative MP whose name I can't recall tweeted, I spoke to the same journalist and I didn't need to call the cops. Did you see that one today?
No, I did not.
There was I just, you know what, I'll dig that. Oh, we've got that one here. Anna Roberts, I forget where she's the MP from. She said the same reporter questioned me at the same event, and I didn't need him to be arrested. How many views on that one? That's a great one. That's good. 42,000. Good for her for saying that. A bit of a sense of humor there too. So, listen, we have only just begun to fight,
100%.
and I'm going to keep our viewers posted. I know Sarah Miller's work. I mean, I'm just really excited that she's taken this file. It's Tuesday. We have to get a few more facts together, and we got to make sure we cover the bases on the law. But I expect that we will be filing this lawsuit this week. And when that happens, I can assure you I will publish the full. I mean, you'll obviously have to approve this because you will be a plaintiff, as will Rebel News. I think we got to sue all the cops and Chrystia Freeland. I think there's at least, I can think of 5 causes of action, as the lawyers would say. And we'll publish the lawsuit because we will need help for it. Because I know that already, when you've got 10 million views, they know they're in trouble. And I want to get these bad guys. I want to stand up for freedom of the press and against dirty cops. You know what? You need to throw out the bad apples before they rot the whole barrel. And what I saw there was a couple of dirty cops who were going to rot the whole barrel. So we do need help at standwithdavid.com. We've got about 3 minutes left before we have to go. You're doing a bunch of shows today. I think you're doing the Ingram Angle on Fox.
Correct, yes.
You're doing Breitbart Radio, maybe.
I hope so. Yep.
I think Newsmax reached out to you.
Correct. Yes.
You're doing Saga 960. You do Mark Petroni, Richard Surrett, probably. I've had some inquiries from the CBC and the Globe and Mail. I just had an inquiry from John Oakley's show. So the media is waking up. Adrian Humphreys from the National Post just emailed me while we're on the show here. So I think even our competitors in the regime media realize this is a big story. And frankly, they can get on board or not. 10 million people have gotten their news elsewhere. In fact, I checked, it was 10.1 million last we looked. And the reason I'm pointing about this is it's just the raw footage, but people are so infuriated by it. I should tell you, we're at 10.3 million views just in the last hour, another 200,000.
And you know something, Ezra, at the end of the day, what a PR disaster for blackface, because he came there to curry favor with the Persian Canadian community, first of all, I can't believe he or any other federal ministers showed their face, because it's been 4 years and no action on the IRGC. And even what blackface said yesterday, we'll look at methods. We'll consider putting the IRGC. Well, what's to look at?
Yeah.
You're a prime minister with a de facto majority government.
And there's been years to consider things.
I know.
He's just a wicked liar, and you can see if fish rots from the head down. The dirty cops who protect him who obviously are mimicking him.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's 12:53 Eastern Time.
Gotcha.
I'm just going to see if there's anything we need to do in terms of. I see a super chat here on Rumble. Cocktoe says, I hope David gets some scotch in him. Stat. Fair deal. I think that's the only super chat I see here.
Well, unfortunately, sometimes when I go to the LCBO, managers such as Ashley Metallo pretend they've been assaulted, call the police, and they get